So as of today, I've watched 117 new movies that released in 2024. And we always got to sit here at the end of the year and talk about the best and the worst. So both of these videos are going to come out at the same time. This is the worst list. If you want to see the best list, it'll be the little dot right up in the corner. But the 10 worst movies of this year happen to be some of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. I personally do believe the worst movie of this year is the worst movie I've ever seen, but there's always going to be worse, you know what I mean? If you dig deeper and you find the right circumstances, you'll find something bad. But my personal connection to the number one movie on this list is really deep, really funny, and stick around till you get to that point. But we're going to start off the list with number 10. Number 10 of this year shouldn't be surprising to anybody, but it's Madame Web. Honestly, a lot of people will probably watch this and be surprised it's not higher. But Madame Web, absolute mess. Hilarious ADR of the voice acting. There is a clip in this movie where the main villain sits there and he's every hour is another moment racing towards death. And I lost it in theaters. It was a comedy. So the only reason that Madame Web is this low on the list is because I had enjoyable things about it. I was able to laugh at this movie. When it comes down to doing a Spider-Man movie without Spider-Man, having 4 Spider-Women and none of them even showing up in suits to the last 5 minutes of the movie, it's a complete joke, and I understand why people think that it's the worst movie of the year, but I've seen worse. And worse being at number 9, Strangers Part 1. This is a slasher movie with no kills whatsoever. There's probably 1 or 2, but there's less than 3 in this movie, and that's an absolute abysmal number. There's a bunch of annoying coincidences that lead this annoying couple and very, very corny boyfriend to do some of the weirdest things I've ever seen in this movie. Like, oh, the motorcycle's just sitting outside, and instead of both leaving the place, you're gonna split up. And the fact that this is supposed to be a trilogy or something, and you haven't heard any news about part 2, yeah, it kind of proves the fact that this movie's really bad. But I have a feeling I will definitely see part 2, because I think that will be way worse. Now, this will be my interesting take on this list. I have Blink Twice at number 8. This movie had a lot of hype around it. A lot of people thought it was good, but it actually kind of offended me the way that everything played out. Yeah, you knew it was going to be creepy and weird with the Epstein Island angle, and they did take it there. And the fact that you put a trigger warning in the front knew that immediately walking in, they were taking it there. What annoyed me about this movie is how it didn't take itself seriously. You're playing Nicki Minaj songs immediately after essay scenes. And they're graphic essay scenes. And they're cracking jokes. They're trying to almost make light of the situation they're in. It really rubbed me the wrong way. And yes, the course of the plot of the movie and the ending I think is all right. But it just didn't handle the situations properly. And even though there's movies like 10, 15, 20 spots higher I think are made worse than this, the plot and the way it was handled was done worse than everything else. So in turn, it's this low. And now, number 7, Garfield movie. This is brain rot, TikTok child films. Mind you, I love children's animation. I have Moana in my top 50 of all time. Some of the Toy Story movies. Coco's a top 20 movie ever. I adore a bunch of these animated films. And even when it comes to Illumination, I enjoy the Mario movie. I even like Despicable Me 4, that's what came out this year, 4. It's a good 40, 50 spots higher on this list. They just made a movie for the TikTok kids that you can just throw on in the background and pick up at any little portion in the movie, and you'll get a little like 5-minute short episode of a TV show. This movie's a stapled together hodgepodge of nothing. And speaking of another movie that's very much nothing, Imaginary at number 6. For a movie called Imaginary, you could go so far into the realm of creativity. You can make some of the coolest monsters ever, some of the coolest dimensions ever, but instead you made a mirror world and a teddy bear. Blumhouse This isn't even the worst movie of the year from them. You'll get to it soon. They just know how to push out some of the worst horror movies of all time. This one left me with nothing. The only slightly decent scare was the one you saw in the trailer with the bear. If you saw that, you saw the movie. But on the complete opposite end of imaginary, we have number 5, that being Rebel Moon Part 2. This is an action movie that goes all out and tries to do the coolest action ever and completely fails. I don't know how you can make a movie with this much gunfighting boring, but Zack Snyder did it. And I don't think Zack Snyder's a bad director. I love Watchmen. 300's a dope movie. He can work for me. I like Batman v Superman. Not many people do, but the Ultimate Edition, I think is a decent movie. They released a director's cut of what he wanted. There's no way I'm watching that slop. All I know is that they made those movies rated R, and I could not care to see this boring action just glorified. There is much better gory movies that released this year. Terrifier 3, Smile 2, Immaculate even had some decent gory things, even though I don't think that movie's the greatest. But yeah, Rebel Moon gives us everything bad about action that you could imagine. And Rebel Moon Part 2 is the first 1 out of 10 on this list. On Letterboxd, you can't rate anything lower than a 1 out of 10, and I kind of agree with that. If you're willing to pick up a camera and put in some effort, which most of these had a little bit of effort behind them, you're going to at least get 1 point out of me. Nothing's a 0 out of 10. But these movies push close. And at number 4, we have Founders Day. Founders Day is a movie I only checked out because I knew someone that worked on it. And I'm sorry if you see this, I don't even want to put your name out there, brother, because it's a low-budget slasher that has very terrible effects on the kills. That's the only thing I could ask for in this movie, is that you, make the knife slitting the throat look decent. You know what I mean? That's what I go to these movies for. But it goes off and it tries to do this meta politics BS that just does not work for the movie that it's built in. I'm going to spoil the movie because nobody cares about this movie. You're never going to watch it. At the end of the movie, after this killer takes out this girl's father, best friend, everybody that she cares about close, he gives her the option that we're going to manipulate the system and you're going to get power in the government and we together are going to reign supreme. And they do. She just listens. And now she's a speaker for the mayor's office. And that's the best part about this movie. It's about a small town. It's not like their political office is going to matter in the full scheme of things. So it's terrible. It's a joke. I walked into it knowing it wasn't going to be great, but I left even more disappointed than I expected. And speaking about that, I don't even know why I did this to myself. Number 3 is Miller's Girl. This is a movie about somebody's fantasy of getting with their teacher, and Jenna Ortega plays a high school student who they aged up to 18, so it's not full pedophile. But then she flirts and does everything to this teacher. And after she does everything in her power to finally get him to reciprocate her feelings, she does the Me Too where she blames him and gets him fired for his job. The whole thing is the most manipulative thing ever. And they try to make it sexy. It's so weird that I was squirming in my seat. This is one of the few movies I almost walked out. But I had to see if they went there. And they did. And it was horrifying. Even though something this atrocious happened, there's still 2 movies that are worse than it. And at number 2, it's Night Swim. It's the other Blumhouse movie that is about a haunted swimming pool. The concept's a joke. The trailers I knew weren't going to be good, but oh my God, it's so much worse than I ever imagined. The acting was so bad, and I knew this movie was a next level terrible when I'm sitting there in the theater and then the girl that used to own the house starts leaking the black goo out of her mouth for no reason, and I started dying. And then the father has some of the worst line delivery in the final scene while he's beating his daughter's ass, and it is atrocious. He's like, "Is everybody okay?" It's just thinking about it is making me laugh. I can at least laugh at Madam Web a little bit more than I can laugh at Night Swim, because for most of Night Swim, probably about 85%, it's just boring. But Madam Web is at least 85% BS. So you could laugh at it throughout the entire thing. Night Swim, you can only laugh at the last 20 minutes. So that's why it's all the way down here. But at number one, we have a movie that none of you have ever heard of before, except for Jeff, except for people in the Film Harassment Club. We are not letting go how bad Lumina is. Lumina, in my opinion, is the worst movie of all time. It is so bad to a point you cannot even comprehend. It is a movie about alien invasions that is supposedly satire, but there's nothing in the movie that proves it's satire. It is a movie directed by an egotistical maniac who's probably going to comment on this video, and I will pin it if he does, but Gino McCoy is an absolute lunatic. He's going to call me racist for saying that his terrible movie is terrible. You want to know why I say that? Because he commented on my Letterboxd review of it. He believes he made a masterpiece. This lousy, pieced together, nonsensical alien love story where they get abducted by aliens and then they play Gino's song and then they go on a road trip and then they play his song again. This entire movie is really an advertisement for his music career, don't forget, even though his music career is failing. And then they meet a guy who's like the only actor in this movie who anyone would recognize because he's in everything in the world. But he ends up working for the aliens. Then the aliens start attacking their RV. Then they end up in a secret bunker because of their RV chase. And then they teleport up to the alien planet. And then they start fighting the aliens. And then the movie ends. And the aliens are the ugliest looking thing in the world. The military effects are the funniest thing ever. There's a weird scene with a goat I ended up missing because I went to the bathroom. My friend won't let it go. This movie isn't on streaming. This movie isn't on anything. You guys have probably never even seen it. But I love ranting about Lumina because what is this? That guy is such an egotistical maniac that he started making multiple accounts to review bomb movies that were competing with his and review bomb his to be amazing. And he ended up getting banned from Letterboxd and Rotten Tomatoes for review manipulation. Like, he is a terrible person. His movie is the worst thing I've ever seen. But I low-key hope we get another thing by him because Lumina is an experience that will never be matched again. And with that being said, that's the 10 worst movies of the year. Bottom one was the worst movie of all time. Let me know what you think is the worst movie of all time. And check out from the pin right up there, it's the top 10 best movies of the year, where I'm not going to sound like a psychopath.